Hey everybody, this is Darth Bribely, and it's been a long time since I've done a film video or a film related video, and I thought I would change that. For those of you that don't know, since the passing of my hamster Joy in April, I have been going to the movies way more than I have in years. I am part of a local film society, and I go to that film society almost weekly now. And last week was something known as Rocky Fest in Philadelphia. It's pretty much exactly what you would think it would be. It is a celebration of the Rocky film series in Philadelphia. And for this particular Rocky Fest, they had an unveiling of a new statue, a second Rocky statue. Now, I'm probably showing some B-roll of that. You might wonder why I'm not showing the B-roll of the actual movie that I'm going to talk about. I'll get to it in a little bit. And one of the things I was really excited for last week was being able to see some of the Rocky films on the big screen. I unfortunately had missed some of the films I really wanted to see in the Rocky series, such as the first three, and maybe this director's cut of Rocky 4. I was fortunate enough to see Rocky Balboa on the big screen, which is my second favorite film in the Rocky series, just counting the Rocky films. And I had been disappointed that I hadn't been able to see Rocky 4, Rocky vs. Drago, the Ultimate Director's Cut, say that 3 times fast, on the big screen. I had seen the behind-the-scenes video that Stallone had put up when he was making this during COVID, because pandemic, perfect time to get one of your old films that you made and recut it the way that you wanted it to be. Now, let's get this out of the way. Rocky 4, which is right here. I'll probably get the DVD out. Hold on. Probably better visual aid here. Rocky 4 is a stupid fucking movie. It's 80s Cold War propaganda. It's a fun time. It's got a lot of great montages, but let's not kid ourselves. This is a stupid movie. And what Stallone was trying to do with this director's cut, at least how it was advertised, he was going to give more depth, more pathos, more meaning to this movie. He wanted to turn what was a stupid film into something that maybe could be compared to the first Rocky. Now, I want to briefly talk about directors that make extended or director's cuts that are actually worth a damn, and director's cuts that make you go, what the fuck was the point of it? Even though some of the movies I'm going to be talking about in this latter category aren't really technically director's cuts, but we'll get into that. When I think of a great director's cut, I think of the films of James Cameron, more often than not. When I watch a James Cameron director's cut, I'm talking about the director's cut, I'm not talking about a remaster here, because that's a different discussion. But when I watched the extended cut, I should probably get it, when I watched The Abyss, despite the shit transfer, again, because it's a different topic, the extended cut of this movie is a science fiction masterpiece. It's paced beautifully. It explores a lot of interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of character depth. There's a lot of great themes in this film. Same for Aliens. The extended cut of this movie is far superior than the theatrical cut. And the big one, Avatar. The extended cut of Avatar is a way better film than the theatrical cut, due to there being more world building. Then you also get a movie like Blade Runner, which has 5 fucking cuts. And that's kind of a slightly different topic compared to this director's cut and extended cut discussion, but it still applies. The 2 definitive cuts of Blade Runner are the final cut and the international theatrical cut. For me, the final cut is the definitive version of Blade Runner, but the international theatrical cut is a nice detective version of Blade Runner. It's very much keeping true to the noir aspects that inspired this film. And this movie's a fucking masterpiece. So perhaps it's unfair to compare Stallone to the likes of Scott and Cameron when it comes to the director's respective cuts. Am I comparing apples to oranges? Am I having a fair comparison here? Perhaps, perhaps not. And then you also have movies within the confines of a director's cut where you take a great movie and you make it even better. I go to the extended cut of Spider-Man 2, which adds 8 minutes of footage. Now, you wouldn't think 8 minutes would be a lot, but it's what are in those 8 minutes that really enhance the movie, or really bring up flaws with the theatrical cut that you wouldn't have expected. There are some goofier moments in the extended cut of Spider-Man 2 that do kind of take away from the film, but also enhance it in some ways. But at the end of the day, the extended cut of Spider-Man 2 overall is a better cut than the theatrical cut. It gave a movie that was a brilliant character study an even better character study of Spider-Man, and really gave depth to characters that felt shallow, like Mary Jane Watson. Now on to the cuts of movies where they just feel fucking pointless. And that's what this director's cut is. Which is extremely disappointing for me to say. I respect the hell out of Sylvester Stallone as an actor and as an artist. I am disappointed with this version of Rocky IV. If you're watching the Rocky movies and you're marathoning all of them, right? And then you're at a crossroads, which cut of Rocky IV do I go with? I'm going to go with the theatrical cut, because that stays in line with the tone of the series, and also keeps the aspect ratio the same throughout the series until you get to the Creed film. And you wouldn't think the aspect ratio would be such a big deal until you watch the director's cut. Because for some reason, Stallone wanted to take the open matte version, right? So look at, I'm going to give you an example here. So I'm going to apply some black bars to this video, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Look at the black bars here, at the top and bottom of the screen. Do they add anything? Am I bringing anything relevant to the frame when I add these black bars? Not really. Am I adding an epic scale with these black bars? Again, not really. Am I killing some of the image? Oh yeah. So now we'll go back to our regularly scheduled aspect ratio here, which would be an open matte format. There are a few instances in Rocky vs. Drago where I'm just trying to figure out what the hell Stallone was thinking here. Because there are moments in this cut where I do see what Stallone was going for. He was trying to give more depth and more meaning to this movie. He wanted Apollo Creed's death to have more meaning. He wanted to have Apollo go out like a warrior instead of Apollo getting slaughtered, which is what the theatrical cut shows. And the boxing matches, I think, are better when comparing the theatrical to the director's cut. And I do think the director's cut does add some more character moments that I think give Rocky more motivation as to why he's going to Russia to fight Drago. It's guilt, and it's wishing he threw the damn towel instead of letting Apollo die, as he puts it. The problem is that when you have a director's cut, it better be worth a damn. And you don't expect the director's cut of Rocky IV to have a longer recap of Rocky III. Now, perhaps if you're viewing this as a standalone film, which I was trying to do here, you can maybe get why a longer recap of Rocky 3 might have been necessary in Stallone's eyes. Because he wanted to bring more scenes of Apollo into the film to show Rocky's struggle internally throughout this film. And when I got this fucking set, if I wanted to watch Rocky 3, I would have just watched Rocky fucking 3. I wouldn't have popped in Rocky 4 if I wanted to see Rocky 3, is what I'm saying here. So, we have 2 more minutes of footage. And the 2 minutes of footage that are being used up, these precious minutes of my time being used, are for a fucking recap of the previous film. That if I was doing a marathon, I would have watched beforehand. I guess what I'm saying is, Rocky 4, Rocky vs. Drago, the ultimate director's cut is the ultimate fucking letdown. It's on par with the editor's cut of Spider-Man 3, where, yes, there are improvements over the theatrical cut at points, but there are also detractions to this cut. A big one is having pointless narration as Rocky is getting up after fighting Drago. This is coming off more like a goddamn George Lucas Star Wars Special Edition situation, as opposed to a needed re-edit of a film, where I'm watching the movie and I'm hearing Stallone in his goddamn 70s narrating a movie that he made in the 80s. You want to talk about a juxtaposition that takes you out of the movie that isn't intentional? That's a good one. Because this isn't Rocky between Rocky Balboa and Creed reassessing his life. We're not having an in-between movie here. We're having Rocky 4. And Stallone was in his 40s when he made this movie. You can tell by the way he sounds throughout the film, except this little bit of narration while he's getting up after Drago has knocked him down. Now, I don't know in this situation if this would have been a justifiable use of AI to try to de-age Stallone's voice here, or a better solution is just don't have the narration, because the whole premise of Rocky Balboa's philosophy is I'm a fighter, doesn't matter how hard I get hit, I always get back up, because life will hit you harder than anything in the ring will. And when life knocks you down, you get back up and you keep moving forward. That is the premise of the Rocky series. It's very inspirational. It's very sentimental. It's a fun roller coaster of a film franchise where some of the movies are great and some of the movies are fucking ridiculous. And Rocky 4 is definitely the most ridiculous one. So here we have an older Sylvester Stallone wanting to go back, retool his old film with a new pair of eyes, which is why I was excited for this cut. I wanted to see what Stallone had to offer here. I wanted to see if Stallone was going to make a better film. Now, the warning signs were there, because I had already watched an Oliver Harper review, but I didn't really finish it because I wanted to judge the film for myself. I wanted to view it with my own eyes. And I did, and I am so fucking glad that I missed the 3 p.m. showing for this cut on the big screen. Now, maybe if it was on the big screen, I would have appreciated it a lot more, because the way I view the movie-going experience is almost religious. I view the movie-going experience as something sacred, as almost like some faith-based person would view going to their respective holy places of worship. It's where I can truly appreciate the art of film. It's where I can just get sucked in to a story. But, goddamn, the fact that I really wanted to see this cut on the big screen before I saw it at home tells you something. It tells you how much I really wanted to see what Stallone had to offer, especially because he did that YouTube documentary that you can find very easily, where he's talking about why he's making these changes, where he's going extremely in depth about subtle differences, or why he's adding this reaction of Drago, or why he wants to add more character depth to Drago. And I was on board. I was sold. I went, okay, Sly, take my money. I want to see what you can offer me as a fan of this franchise and as a fan of your body of work. And unfortunately, the grand whole of this film is a letdown. Because instead of looking at this cut of Rocky IV and being blown away, I was left wondering at points, what is the point? What is the point of this cut? Or if you're going to re-edit a film, why not re-edit it to where it's longer, or certain scenes are drawn out a little longer? Why? Because this is an alternate cut of a film. Ergo, you're entitled to make it more of a slower, deliberately paced type of film. There are so many shots in this movie that cut quicker than shots in the theatrical cut. And that's disappointing. Because when I listen to Sylvester Stallone, when it comes to movies, and when it comes to his filmmaking philosophy, and when it comes to his way of telling a story, he knows what he's doing. Or at least I thought he knew what he was doing until I watched this fucking cut. Because cutting quicker from scenes compared to how they were edited in the theatrical cut is extremely distracting. It takes me out of the film. When we're in Las Vegas and we're seeing Drago knock down the cutout of Apollo Creed, foreshadowing what Drago will do to Apollo, the transition is like jumpy. You have a fade to Las Vegas, and the pacing just feels off. This doesn't come off like a seasoned filmmaker made this. This doesn't come off like that. It comes off like an arrogant fan restoration. I'm not talking about a fan restoration like the Harmony Despecialized Edition, where that's more of a preservationist effort, and that's extremely necessary for the Star Wars series. I'm talking about a cut of a film that just makes you go, why did I waste an hour and a half of my life with this? I would have been better off watching some of this shit on YouTube, because the boxing matches in Rocky vs. Drago are better, okay? I do want to emphasize that. Overall, Stallone had it right when it came to re-editing the Apollo versus Drago fight, because it did exactly what Stallone wanted. He wanted Apollo to go out like a warrior this time, instead of it being a slaughter. And guess what? This cut did that. Apollo's death was more emotional. The different choices of footage from this cut to the theatrical was an asset to this cut. Same to some extent with the iconic Rocky vs. Drago fight. But then you have instances like that dumb use of narration that makes you question, why the hell did Stallone think that his late 70s voice wouldn't be distracting when watching a film that he made in the 80s? It's definitely ego. And again, it's something where I wonder if AI would have been a useful thing to have had, just for that instance, to de-age his voice a bit. The weird thing is, Stallone also does changes in the montages that aren't as good as they were in the theatrical version. For example, in the No Easy Way Out montage, when we're having the flashbacks to the previous Rocky film, they're in black and white. And also the clips of Drago being intercut in the montage, they're also in black and white. And you have to wonder, what's the goddamn point of adding a black and white filter to these montage scenes? I think overall, a lot of the re-editing in Rocky vs. Drago hurt this film. I really wanted this cut to be on par with the extended cut of Spider-Man 2 in some of the James Cameron and Ridley Scott films I had mentioned earlier. But unfortunately, Rocky vs. Drago is a pointless exercise in artistic vanity. God, that was the most pretentious thing I've said on camera. But that's how I feel. And I fucking love the Rocky series. I mean, look at this shit. Like I said, love this series. One of my favorite film series of all time. Like I said, I fucking love the Rocky series. I mean, for God's sakes, I own the first 6 on DVD, right? I've had these since 2011. This I bought as a little bit of an upgrade. The only issue is it doesn't come with the last 2 films. But there is a set that does have the last 2 films in 4K. So I feel kind of ripped off with this set. Just saying. And still gotta watch the last 2 Creed films. But I love the Rocky and Creed series, or the Rocky saga. Look, post the Creed series, you know, being added to the Rocky lore, I guess you would call it the Rocky Creed saga instead of just the Rocky saga. But I'll always view it as the Rocky series or the Rocky anthology. And I think keeping the tone of, or keeping the word anthology when describing the Rocky films describes it perfectly. And fuck me, does it hurt saying that this cut of Rocky IV, it's beyond disappointing to say, a filmmaker who I have a great deal of respect for, someone who is one of my filmmaking heroes and idols, as well as to some extent an intellectual hero, despite his problematic politics, but that's a different discussion, and I'm not going to get into that here. It sucks when you really root for an artist and they turn out a meh project, or something where you just question the point. And as I've said, Rocky vs. Drago, the ultimate director's cut, is certainly in the what the fuck was the point of that category. Watch this movie on Vudu if you want to watch it, or Fandango at home as it's called now for some fucking reason. I'm wondering if this cut of Rocky IV can be salvaged if I just jump to Creed 2. Because I almost feel that viewing Rocky vs. Drago as a companion piece to Creed 2 rather than a standalone film, or rather viewing it as an extension of the Rocky series, would be a better way of viewing it than on its own. But I'm skeptical of that. Anyway, with that in mind, thank you for watching this video. Live long and prosper, and maybe you'll like it. I honestly don't have any desire to rewatch this cut after the first viewing. I enjoyed parts of it, but overall, I'm just left with why. Once again, thank you all for watching this video, and have a great day.